Hello, 7th graders. I hope you guys are doing well. We miss you. It's Miss Schillig here. If you didn't know, I just wanted to reach out and give you guys a little bit of an overview of everything you have learned so far in Chapter 5. And Chapter 5 is all about direct proportions. So here's what you're looking at. When we started this chapter, we had to look at tables and decide if the table represented a direct proportion or not. So we're going to test this table to see if it has a K. And if you remember, K stands for constant. So if this table does have a constant, then you are dealing with a direct proportion. And if you're dealing with a direct proportion, you can write an equation, which are the two things that you did throughout this entire chapter, whether you were dealing with a table, whether you started with an equation, or if you had a graph. You're always trying to figure out, is there a K? Is there a constant? And then make a direct proportion equation out of it. So let's take a look at the table that we've been given here. And luckily we've been given X's and Y's, which can be interchangeable with pretty much any variable. But if it's on top, you can assume that that variable represents the X. And if it's on the bottom, you can assume that it represents the Y. So here in our table, they've given us a bunch of X and Y combinations, and we need to test each of them to see if there's a constant. And when you're testing for a constant, you use this guy. This is how you figure out if there's a constant of proportionality. K equals Y over X. So when I move this box here, this big orange pumpkin colored box, you're gonna see my work where I took each of these points from the table and tested them. I put the Y over the X 4 different times to see if it always came out the same. So there's our test right there. For some reason, the fraction line is invisible on the first one. But if you did this work and you divided each time, you would find that your answer is always 7. If you guys can see, Miss Schillig's stylus, yes, I just referred to myself in the third person. My stylus is not working, so I have to use my oversized fingertips to make these 7s, and hopefully that doesn't bother you. But what do we have here? We have a constant. Every time we tested the Y divided by X, out popped a 7, which means that our K is, that's right, 7. So now because we have a K and it was always 7, we can then write what's called the direct proportion equation. And there's your format always for a direct proportion equation. Y equals K times X. Now the only thing that's going to come out of this equation when you go to write it is that K. That's going to change into a number. The only time that there's an exception to what I just said is if they give you annoying other variables. So let's say they gave you W for Y and M for X. You'd have to change those too, but they would still be letters. They would still be variables. The only thing you exchange or substitute a number for is that constant. And there's your final answer. All right, that's video 1. Dun dun dun. Stay tuned for video 2.